Perimenopause is full of surprises, hot flashes, mood swings, changes in your body that leave you wondering what's happening. Many women are turning to GLP-1 medications for a quick fix when it comes to weight. But is it really a fix or a quiet crisis? In this episode, Alyx Coble-Frakes joins the Reproductive Rebel show to uncover the hidden side effects of GLP-1s in perimenopause, from hormonal disruption to gut and metabolic impacts. If you are navigating this stage of life and want clarity before you make a choice, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are. I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Alyx Coble-Frakes today. Thanks for coming on the show, Alyx.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have such a fun time.
I love when I have these screening conversations and I'm like, oh, I wish this person lived right near me because I feel like we would be besties. Alyx is one of those people. She has an amazing mission with the work that she's doing. She has incredible energy. So now I need to stop talking so that people can find out just how lovely you are. So tell the people who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much again for having us. I'm just really excited for the conversation today. So I'm Alyx. I'm an accidental period entrepreneur. So when I was 10 and they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I never thought I'd be working in women's health, but I'm really excited to be here. I started out working in the horribly kind of wonderful, sometimes world of weight loss in 2015. So I worked with a weight loss company that I have a lot of big feelings about now, but I was 23 at the time. And it kind of got me into like the world of really being more conscientious of what I was eating and what I was thinking about, especially as the world is changing, our food supply is changing. You know, there's so many things that can impact the way that our bodies are. And so I was excited to kind of get spun in that direction. And then in 2018, I opened up a health coaching practice. That was my first foray into business for myself. And when I was in the process of making that company, I found that I had higher sales during the ovulation phase of my menstrual cycle. So I created a planner after a meditation, which is another long, weird story. But I created a planner for women to work with their menstrual cycle to increase their productivity. And then that has since transformed into a free app and so much content and courses. And we've got a lot of tricks up our sleeve right now. There's a lot that we're working on right now that's going to open up the next chapter of the agenda period. So there's a lot behind the scenes, but overall, the North Star of the company and my North Star is that every single person on earth should understand their body as a human right. And men often understand their bodies because the whole world works around their bodies. And women often don't know about their menstrual cycles. They don't know about how their hormones impact literally every facet of their life. And I think that should be the basic bare minimum amount of education for every person with a cycle, because your period changes everything about how you show up in the world.
Sing it, sister. Now you see why I'm so excited to have this incredible human on the show. Absolutely. So another kindred reproductive rebel spirit over here who wants to change the world. And I love that. And I loved her energy around that because it is so freaking important. And it still, to this day, I've been doing this work for almost 8 years now, and I still, to this day, have my mind blown by the number of people who don't know how to count day one of their cycle.
Oh, yeah. That one's so tricky. And so really confusing.
Yeah, like where day one is and how that impacts. Because like then you go to the doctor and you have tests done And they say, well, come back on day 3. And if you're counting from brown spotting and not from red flow, you're going to get very different information in terms of your hormones. Like, we just have so little education collectively. I love what you're doing with the agenda period. And when we were having our screening call, I'm definitely going to be having Alyx on a couple of times here because she is a wealth of really cool information. But one of the things we were talking about is perimenopause and this uptick in use of GLP-1. She has some firsthand experience with it. She's had some people in her sphere information with it. Yeah, she's got a lot. And I think that this is such a critical conversation right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, who doesn't love a quick fix under the patriarchy? Because one, you can give billions of dollars to corporations. And two, it keeps women focused on staying thin and busy rather than being embodied and empowered. So, of course, GLP-1 is a miracle drug during this time because based on the American stress system, the way our food system is, and the way that women are systematically forced to do much more additional labor, around 70% of the unpaid labor in their homes, even with like good guys, right? This is still happening. Women, that starts to really mess with your cortisol. That messes with your cortisol your entire life, but particularly as we enter the perimenopause, when things are already in a state of fluctuation and change, it starts to really impact our cortisol levels. And so we see that in the rounding of bases, that kind of tire around the midsection. And also similar things can happen postpartum, right? That kind of mimics some of those really big changes. So after I had twins in 2020, by the time they were 2 years old, the stress from the lack of support and just the difficulty grasping onto any of the tools I even had for myself, I was up 75 pounds plus from where I am now. My face just looked like someone pumped air into my cheeks. Like I didn't even think I was eating that much. I was just like insanely stressed out. And it was a really, really tough time. So luckily, the work that I've done prepared me to kind of bring myself back to that, back through that journey. And then where I was at close to goal weight, I got interested in GLP-1s. So I was like, well, this really, because I have struggled personally with a lifetime of binge eating, losing and gaining those same 20 pounds, which come to find out, I just am neurodivergent. And it's very common with neurodivergent women to have binge eating as one of those compensatory mechanisms for stress. And so I understand it now, but I didn't quite understand all those pieces at the time. And I was like, I wonder if this will make my food chatter go away. I'm not really looking to lose a ton of weight, but I'm just interested to see how it feels. And this feels like an important moment in time to try it out. So I took GLP-1s for about 6 months. And in that time, I lost 10 pounds because, like I said, I was already at a pretty frame. But I started noticing some other gynecological things that I hadn't heard people talking about. So I started getting multiple UTIs a month, multiple yeast infections a month. Sex started to be less comfortable. I was experiencing more dryness, almost like some of the things that you think about. And this was before I discovered I was like really tipping into perimenopause. But I'm like, these are some of the things that are kind of already associated with perimenopause. And I was like, is there any research on this? Because I keep hearing that everything's so safe with the menstrual cycle. And there's not a lot of great research, but I did see some conclusive research on what they're calling Ozempic vulva. I think they differ, that they causes atrophy in the vulvar region because of what it does to estrogen. It can really cause dryness. And so I was thinking to myself, they're putting this for women who typically are already reporting low libido, vaginal dryness, incontinence, urinary tract infections. And so that's someone who was experiencing those things before the drug. I wasn't experiencing any of that before taking the drug. And so then I kept like, that really made me go down that rabbit hole. Like, wow, we are doing some terrible things for women's health. I've been seeing some not the great research around the bone and muscle density and what that can do and what that can impact on the exercise side. And when we look at the whole puzzle, I'm left thinking, I'm pretty sure that this drug was tested and based around men's bodies, because these are not really good side effects to be dealing with, especially if you're already on the precipice of divorce, if you're on the precipice of issues in your marriage, and then you're taking a drug that does make you more thin at the cost of like tanking your entire libido. So that's like my blunt, and I'd love to take it in any like direction that you want to go from there. But those are my thoughts. I think Ozempic is bad for women, and we're not. And I'd love to ring the warning bell. I think most women aren't going to find out fully until like they're a couple more decades down the pipeline in this direction, because people are so ecstatic with the results they're getting.
Well, oh God, there's so much to unpack there. Yeah. So you are going into a phase of life where you're already starting to experience dryness, and you not being quite in that position yet and going from no symptoms to symptomatic is really profound, because I see a lot of women who are using the Zepbound or the Ozempic, and they're like, oh, I've never been able to lose this weight, but their bones are getting more fragile because their body isn't absorbing things the same, and they don't have all of the minerals and nutrient building blocks that they had before. And like, it's like this compounding thing. So you already are losing bone density and muscle mass after 35 anyway, but it's gradual.
Yeah,
So
this
now
is expediting that process.
Exponentially expediting this process. And I'm not saying there aren't people who aren't taking it and they're working out. I mean, when you have the muscle tug on bone and you're creating that strain on your bones and your muscles, you're building, right? But there's a lot of people who are using this as I'm really frustrated with my meno belly, but I've been exercising all wrong and I don't know that I have been, because that's a whole conversation. Like, you have
to drive up cortisol and then you can't lose the weight anyway. Yeah.
Correct. And so, like, if we were to educate people about how their bodies changed in a more meaningful way going into this phase of life, would as many people turn to this? Maybe, maybe not, because we have this quick fix kind of culture. And honestly, there's nothing about women's bodies that is a quick fix. Like, we don't, at any stage of life, we do not lose weight quickly. We do not put muscle on quickly. Like, we have to really work at stuff like that because of the chemistry that we hold with all of the hormone symphony that we go through every single month that is in alignment with the lunar cycle. When we're getting into this transition, we're already sensitive to cortisol. Now we're going to further throw off our body chemistry with this GLP-1. And
that drug raised my cortisol. I could just, like, looking back, because I was having a stomach ache almost every day. Riding in the car for any length of time was uncomfortable because, like, the belt would press right on your stomach, which must get inflamed or something like funky happening from taking the GLP-1. Like, it was just, if I didn't eat immediately in the morning, I would almost throw up from nausea. Like, wow. I'm like, this is not, yeah, I lost 10 pounds, but I gained the pounds back. But my body just recalms in a different way because I work out all of the time. And the thing that is so crazy is my body's now the same weight that it was the first time I had to go on a diet in high school, because it was just the wrong size. I was just too fat, right? 160 pounds. The number doesn't really matter, except for to say our body has got a set point. Your body has got a range where it feels comfortable.
Yes.
And that will fight to return to that for, I guess, my whole life, because literally this is the size I was at 16. It looks different from parent children. Like, the composition is different, but it's the same mass, because that was a set point where my hormones were healthy. My cycle was normal. I was working out. And I am stronger than I ever was in high school, because now I focus on staying strong. I ran 2 miles today. Normally I do a 4-mile loop, but I don't want to be late for the show, you know? So, like, it's stronger than it's ever been. I'm eating the foods that are working for my body. I'm seeing exercise as a mental health exercise. And damn, I wish someone could have just told me that when I was 16. It would have saved me decades of heartbreak.
Oh my gosh, yes.
The book Bitter or Better, I Decide by Hannah Koch is a practical and uplifting guide to turning life challenges into stepping stones. Bitter or Better shows how to understand yourself, resolve conflict, strengthen relationships, and reconnect with the source of love so you can choose better, not bitter, every day. For more information, go to bitterorbetteridecide.com.
And it's so true. Like, I have a very similar set point. I used to kickbox when I was in my 20s, and I did martial arts. So like I wasn't a slouch. I wasn't sitting on the couch. I wasn't binge drinking and eating like garbage, like none of that, because I was competing and I was really aware of what was going in my body, both food in my mouth as well as different kinds of exercise in order to be able to be competitive. And I weigh similar to what I weighed then. And I am stronger and I'm healthier and my cycles are better now than they were then, because I didn't know how to exercise in alignment with my cycle. I didn't know how to do things in alignment with this change in our hormone picture all throughout the month, and being able to work in alignment with that rather than against it makes all the difference in the world. So, I feel like people who turn to the quick fix of a GLP-1 could really benefit from, I'm going to call it intervention a little sooner, where, we're talking about what is it that your body needs. Just because this form of exercise used to work for you, especially when we're looking at perimenopause, when we get into this perimenopausal phase of life, you're essentially starting from scratch and you're learning how to take care of this body all over again. Your sleep needs change, your eating needs. God, I feel like an old woman. I've now started needing a banana before I go to bed in order to sleep well and not get foot cramps. Like, really? So, and I'm 41, like I'm not that old, but like I'm old, like my body is starting to be like, hey girl, you have different
things are changing here. Yes.
So like being educated around these changes that are happening in our body and like how that overlays with your cycle, because we're going to use my banana example. My foot cramps are worse after my bleed. But it's because the tank is empty.
Yep, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Right? So, now when you throw in a GLP-1 on top of all of that, that changes the way that you are receiving nourishment in your body.
Yes, it really did. Yeah.
The rest of your system starts to wobble.
Yes. So here's the thing that no one wants to talk about this because it's not sexy, but there are 3 things we boil down after working with thousands of women in this area, particularly as they go through perimenopause. And there are 3 things that every person needs to do. So the first thing is figure out finally for once and for all, what foods actually work for your specific body. So there's a lot of diet rhetoric out there. Eat this, don't eat that. You can't eat oatmeal. You should only eat hard-boiled eggs without the yolk. Like whatever, there's so much wisdom out there. But the truth is that every single human being is different and their bodies change and they need different nutrients as you age. So whenever we start working with people, I essentially love to have someone go through a round of Whole30 so that they can get everything out and then they can have an honest reflection with themselves as like, does this food actually work for me or does it not work for me? I had to have that conversation with myself about gluten because I cut it out and I was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And then I ate some gluten and my stomach popped out 7 inches and I had a headache for 3 days. And I was like, well, shit. And it's really just the way that we're processing gluten in the United States, because this year I was in Jamaica, last year I was in multiple different countries and had 0 issues eating gluten anywhere else because our food system is poisoning us, right? So that's thing number 1 is figuring out what food actually works for you as you get into perimenopause. It's going to be different. Some of the foods, like I can't eat as much cheese. If I eat soft cheese, like we're in for the night. Like we just have to know these things about ourselves because your body loses some of those enzymes and the ability to break down these foods as we age. So just because it's a food that always works for you doesn't mean it's still going to work for you in perimenopause. So anytime you start to get those tummy troubles, clear everything out and try again so that you can really see. And then you can have that integrity with yourself. You're like, does this food actually work for me or does it not work for me? And I'm still going to sometimes eat it and just know I will be suffering. Both of those are okay, but we want to come from an informed place when we're making that choice. The second thing that it is for everyone, especially in perimenopause, is to get movement that is focused on how it makes your brain feel. So for so long, we used movement only to punish ourselves, to make ourselves smaller, which always makes women pick exercises that don't really fucking work for us, especially in the different phases of our cycle. Yep. So it's about testing this out as a theory for your brain and emotional health, because of the way it pumps dopamine into the system, like especially as our levels of estrogen are changing, getting more dopamine in healthy ways, not from alcohol, because that also really screws up your endocrine system. I'm so sorry to tell you, but really getting dopamine in healthy ways is going to help you maintain as much clarity and sanity as you move through perimenopause as is totally possible. And then the last thing that everyone has got to do to stay healthy in perimenopause, and this is one that people don't like to talk about, is you have to check out your health ecosystem, because this happens to women. I will someday probably study the scientific correlation better. The people in your health environment are either going to contribute to you being fit and well, or for you being sick and unhealthy. Women do so much unintentional caretaking that in bad health ecosystems, we see the cortisol pile up. We see the weight load up on our physical frame. We see the stress from not being able to take care of ourselves and being forced to take care of everyone else's nervous system. That should not be happening if you live with other grown adults. So if you have a husband or a partner and you're very, very far away from your health, that is a really great indication that there's a sickness inside of the health ecosystem. You could also look like maybe you've got a job that is not working for you anymore. That cortisol is going to show up on your physical body. And I am all for the body positivity and fat liberation movement. And those clues to us indicate other things that are wrong with our system when our frame is carrying far too much that lead to cancers. They are indicative of diabetes issues later in life, heart conditions, renal failure. We know all of these things. This is not about being a size 2. This is about being a size that works for your longevity. And so when you're holding so much on the frame, I always say, let's talk about your most intimate and romantic relationships. What's going on there? Because we see it all the time when women leave, they talk about the post-divorce glow up. That relationship was causing so much cortisol that it was holding extra weight in your physical body, probably to keep you safe.
Yes. Well, and not only do we put weight on in that safety mechanism, but fat converts really easily to energy when it's held in the abdomen. So it's super inconvenient, but it's adapted over time in order from an evolutionary perspective to keep us alive.
And if you get pregnant, you know, it's going to suck you right from there. That's why I think I got pregnant with twins. At that time, from my toxic relationship, I had extra pounds to spare. And I was like, hey, this is very supportive for pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are moving out of that time of your life in perimenopause, then it's really that time to think, like, is this a relationship where I can get and stay healthy? And if there's something there, that's perimenopause. I call it like the pro-self during our first half of our cycle, and the pro-social and then the pro-self. In perimenopause, we spend more and more of our time in our pro-self orientation. So that's why you're going to get more irritated with a partner disrespecting you, more irritated with a job that's not working, more irritated with what your government's doing. Hell yeah, be pissed off about that, right? Like, we're just going to get more irritated because, like, we're turning into our own system and recognizing how sick we are because of the years of people pleasing, the years of not tending to our own health needs. And so this is really that wake up call for women in midlife. It's not because you're going crazy. You're getting clarity on what's no longer working for you. And that includes oftentimes some of those most important relationships. So that's like our third pillar. Like, you have to clean up after you work. You get some like energy back from working through your food and movement issues and conundrums. Then you have to clean up the emotional house that you're living in as well.
Oh gosh, that one's so important. And there's not nearly enough value placed on how important that one is, because that is where a lot of, I'm a fire breathing dragon, I'm crying about everything, why do I feel so unstable? Like, these are statements I hear all the time. And it has to do with exactly this. Like, emotions are energy in motion. You can only bottle that shit for so long before the lid blows off. And when it comes to perimenopause and the estrogen veil is lowering, there's less and less ability to keep the lid on that bottle, and it just pops open. And honestly, you physically cannot keep the lid on that bottle, because this is where we get cortisol dysregulation and other kinds of dysregulation, because we have a large amount of our sex hormones that are made in our adrenals. And when we're going through this transition and our ovaries are coming offline and more reliance is going to our adrenals, like, women are the ones that experience adrenal fatigue. Men don't, because 97% of their sex hormones are made in their testes and only 3% in their adrenals. They can handle a massive amount of stress and sleep deprivation before it starts to affect their health at a chronic level. Women are not built that way. We are not little men. And like you had said at the outset of the episode, there's so much of the research that is done like as if we are little men, and it's just not accurate.
No. It's like, for that very same reason, the adrenal stress, I think, is where it really links back to why intermittent fasting is not great for women. There's a couple phases of the cycle where it's not as disruptive to our endocrine system, and the rest of the time, it's not great for us. cold plunge. That's not great for women all of the time. It's great at particular times in the cycle, but not all of the time, because we are not little men. We are not little men. We cannot handle the things in the same way. They don't work for us, which is why you see when women try to do the things that men are doing, typically we gain weight. And the guy you're doing it with will lose 30 pounds. And you're like, what the fuck? Well, because it was to made for you. That's why you shouldn't be stopping it.
Yes, exactly. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to lose weight with a male partner.
Yeah, when I went on that, I was in a big trial, lost 10 pounds and was feeling miserable every single day. My fiance lost 30 pounds just because he stopped eating gluten with me. And I was like, you're welcome for the visible abs. You're welcome. And I'm over here suffering, not in silence, mind you. I was suffering loudly. I wanted to make sure everyone else knew about it, but I was just like, all he did was stop eating gluten. He's like, yeah, I guess it was pretty bad for me. I was like, yeah, I guess it was. Thanks a lot. And I lost 10 pounds and had recurring UTIs. I was like, what a great time to be me. So this is what we see over and over in women's health, right? Is like these solutions that do not work for us. And we keep paying the huge tax bill for signing up for these science experiments that we were never included in to begin with.
Oh my goodness. So well worded. So I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing, how long after you went off of Ozempic did you stop seeing the dryness, the infections, all of those kinds of things?
30 days.
Wow, it took a whole month.
Probably like one cycle. You're just now like, here I am. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh, see, this is why I wanted to do this episode, because I've had people talk about how weak they feel, how nauseous they feel, the fact that, oh, well, I'm getting results, but I don't know how I feel in my body. But like never to the extent of I had infections, I had this, I had that. And I'm like, wow, okay, so this is creating a much bigger impact on women's bodies than I realized.
I had a UTI that got so bad that I needed to go get to the emergency room on New Year's Eve because it was like all the way up to my back. So it had traveled up.
Oh, no.
So I was like on a horse dose of antibiotics. I being probably 1 or 2 UTIs in my life. I had 7 during the 6 months I was on Ozempic.
Wow,
That's over and over. It was horrible. I'm also very sensitive. So, right, I think, on the spectrum, I'm on the most sensitive and I notice all of these little things. So it's likely that there are more women experiencing some of these subtle changes that they're not even recognizing because they weren't super tuned into how their vulva was feeling beforehand. So I actually anticipate that it's a higher rate of these issues going on. But again, especially with that audience demographic that keeps getting channeled, they're having more UTIs anyway, right? Just as that time of life, as estrogen changes, that lead to rising bacteria levels in our urethra, all of these different things with perimenopause. So some women may be experiencing that and not recognizing how much it's contributing by the GLP-1.
Well, and as a Chinese medicine practitioner, this makes total sense to me. So I don't need a study to tell me why that would happen. When you're more yin deficient, meaning the substance that your body is made up of, the fluids that your body is made up of, when there's less of that, it's like when you need to put radiator coolant in the car, and without the coolant, you start to steam and then the engine will overheat. So you're not providing enough lubricative moisture, essentially, to the body, and it's showing signs of overheating. Infections are a sign of overheating, night sweats, again, all things that are typically seen in perimenopause. But yeah, I'm sure nobody's making that connection. That is wild.
Yeah, it was really crazy. So I'm glad I ran the experiment, and it's not one that I'll ever do again. And so that's really the truth is it's easy to be out of shape, but once you're really in that good shape where you want to be, it's a lot easier to maintain it. So it's about getting there when you can, and then working to maintain that and understanding that doing movement that feels good to you is a lifelong project. Eating in a way that makes you feel nourished, that's a lifelong project. Only having space for people in your life who respect you, that's a lifelong project. And girl, that one's hard. That one is so hard, but it is the worst overall health ecosystem. And it's something that is particularly hard for women because of how we're socialized. So these conversations really help to normalize that for folks. So thank you for hosting today.
Oh, goodness. Well, I was actually going to ask if you had a final thought to leave our audience with, and how can they find you? Because this was such an incredible conversation.
Check us out at theagendaperiod.com. That is a clearinghouse for all things period power. So check that place out. And then my final thought beyond the one I already said is you are not crazy. You are cyclical. We live on a period planet. That's what I call it. The planet has 4 seasons and 13 moons, just like women. There's a feminine essence here. And the thing that has made us feel so discombobulated is being disconnected from the truth of what our bodies are supposed to do, the truth of who we are. And so reclaiming that is hard and it's worth it. And it's almost like a spiritual practice of coming back to the body over and over again. So you can do it. Here's the invitation. Just keep coming back to yourself one cycle at a time.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alyx, and sharing your wisdom and your firsthand experience. And like I said, Alyx is amazing, and I'm definitely going to have her back for another episode. So until next time, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist, Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.